Hello there and welcome. So today just going to mention a little bit about riding a motorcycle that is fitted with luggage. Panniers, top box, tank bag maybe. Now for years and years and years I have ridden motorcycles, predominantly BMWs, that have panniers. Well, I'm very used to them, I don't notice them, and they have no effect on me whatsoever really. It's just my norm. I find them very useful. But people that have ridden motorcycles without, and it might be the design of the motorcycle, when they do fit luggage or ride a motorcycle with luggage, they sometimes find that it's a little bit unnerving or they feel a bit strange about it. And there's a few rules we should consider when we're riding a motorcycle with luggage. So the first rule of thumb really with luggage is don't overload the panniers or the top box. In your handbook, where you have luggage that has come with the motorcycle, there will be advice as to the maximum weight that you should carry in that luggage, and if it's in excess of that you can have handling issues. You should always load heavy items at the lowest point that you can, so don't have them in the top box. The weight should be distributed evenly, and items that could roll around should be secure. If you have retrofit luggage that you might buy from another manufacturer and you bolt it to your bike, you might not have such clear guidelines, so you do need to be careful of that. Now, when you are riding with a loaded motorcycle, you may need to consider increasing tyre pressures, and you may need to consider adjusting your rear suspension. And if you do that, your headlight aim and your mirrors probably won't need adjusting at all. And the reason we're going to make those adjustments is we don't want the back end sitting down too low with the front end too high. And if we do that, of course, we change the geometry of the bike, and it can have effects on steering and braking and cornering, which we don't want to be undesirable. And years ago I can remember many cases that where people had put sort of luggage on, and I think even in the early days when the police used to fit their luggage, so not tested to the standards these days that things are generally for aerodynamic efficiency, and you would get situations such as wobble and weave or tank slappers. So the back end would be sat a little bit low, there'd be a change in the way that the aerodynamics worked on the motorcycle, and then at certain speeds, or if you hit a bump in the road or something, it would set the bike so the handlebars wobbled quite unpleasantly left and right, what we could call a tank slapper, and they could get very uncontrollable, very unpleasant indeed. So it's very important that you only fit stuff to your motorcycle that you know really is approved and isn't going to cause you a safety issue. I have seen people with tank bags. I've never ridden with a tank bag personally. Some people like them on sports bikes because they can lean on them a little bit on long journeys and it gives them a little bit of support. If you load that tank bag with anything too heavily, you are affecting the centre of gravity of the bike because you're putting a weight on quite high. But one of the things that I have seen on occasions with tank bags is that someone goes onto an almost full lock turn and they hit the emergency cut-off button and kill the engine and the bike falls over. Just be careful that if you do put tank bags on, that your handlebars can move freely left and right, and there is no safety issues as regards your steering or your controls, because you don't want issues such as that. So for some people, riding with luggage can make the bike feel very different, and that will depend maybe whether it's manufacturer luggage or aftermarket, and aftermarket luggage is a bit of a one-size-fits-all. At higher speeds, aerodynamics can contribute to slightly different handling of the bike. Of course, aerodynamics is a complicated subject, far more than I can go into or know about, but it's worth bearing in mind a motorcycle is very reactive to changes of setup and construction, and therefore it can have an issue. It's also why even manufacturers will very often recommend a maximum speed when luggage is fitted, and you'll also see that some manufacturers will say if you're going to have panniers, don't have the top box, or if you're going to have the top box, don't have the panniers. So there's lots of varieties and variations in suggestions and rules, if you like, which ensure the safety of motorcycles when fitted up with luggage. Now, one other thing that my viewer mentioned was he can't see the panniers in his mirrors. Now, I don't know if you can see in my mirrors there, I can see a little bit of my pannier. With these BMWs, with the lower mirrors, they're quite good at rear observation, and you can always see the panniers in them. I know on larger motorcycles that I've ridden with the mirrors that come off of the handlebar, like the 1200 GS for example, from memory, you don't see quite as much of the pannier. And the question is, do you need to see the pannier? I don't think I do. I don't think it's necessary for me to see the pannier at all. I mean, I've got so used to riding these machines that seeing the pannier just sat at the bottom of the mirror there is much like in the car where you just see the rear quarter wing of your car in your mirror. It sometimes just gives you a little bit of perspective that your brain's used to, but I don't think it's essential, and I don't think it in any way needs to affect your riding. The only thing you might want to do is to make sure the thing hasn't fallen off. It's quite nice to look and see that it's there. Now we're just going into the urban riding now, into the city. I don't know if any filtering opportunities will present themselves. A question I get asked a lot is, if you have panniers, does it stop you from filtering? Well, it's like anything. If you're going to increase the width of your vehicle, your opportunities to get through a gap will change. Some people will say if your mirrors will fit through, so will your panniers. Well, in most cases that might be true, but I do remember my GS's panniers, if you put them on the extra wide setting, because they wasn't as vario, you could make them wider, they did get very wide. So it's just a case of learning them really, and being aware, and in the same way that you assess the width for driving a car through a gap, or driving your motorcycle in the first place through a gap, you know, your handlebar width, you have to do exactly the same with panniers. And I don't think mirrors are going to help with that process of evaluation, because once you've committed to going through a gap, your mirrors are only showing you the panniers as you come through. So if you're filtering on something that tight, either you shouldn't be filtering, or your head and eyes should well be up to the front for stability. It's like anything, isn't it? It's really what you get used to, and it takes time to develop. And if you're not used to riding with the luggage and you decide you need to filter, only go for gaps that are what appear to be obviously big enough. If you're thinking, I'm not sure, don't try it, just wait. You don't want to catch another vehicle with the panniers and then lose control of your bike. I remember many years ago, with a bike with panniers on, I just touched the pannier of another motorcycle coming through a slow gap. I was only doing probably about 1 to 2 miles an hour. It's absolute walking pace. And I remember it really upset the bike. It sent it into quite a little wobble just for a few moments, and I thought, I don't like this at all. You wouldn't want to be doing it at higher speeds, because that wobble would have probably got significantly worse and resulted in a total loss of control. And as I say, it was only the smallest of glances. Motorcycles are very reactive, as we know. So if you look at my filtering video, you'll see the sort of gaps that I'm happy to filter on with the larger motorcycle and with the panniers. And my older BMW had slimmer panniers. These ones have got the larger touring panniers on them. They are quite wide. But as with everything, it's just a choice for you, a decision to be made. So just a very quick little insight there onto riding a motorcycle with luggage, and a few little areas just to be aware of. In summary, load evenly, don't overload, and keep things low down. And consider your suspension and tyre pressures. So until next time, ride safe and take care.